the one thing I found that was really interesting was he said 100% of his clients who have had an issue with the FTC, 100%, not 99, not 98, 100% were triggered by the BBB. Meaning there were complaints at the BBB that triggered the investigation. So what should you do as a company if you're in an industry that's monitored by the FTC? Watch the BBB.
This is The Fighting Entrepreneur, the podcast dedicated to entrepreneurs looking to change the world. Learn how to start, build, and scale a business in today's highly competitive business environment. Here's your host, The Fighting Entrepreneur, Anik Singal.
What's up, you crazy fighting entrepreneurs? Welcome to TLDL. You lazy entrepreneurs. All right, listen, if you didn't listen to the interview that I did with my own attorney, all right, Michael Carrigan, I got to tell you right now, it has been getting, even in this company and in our team, they have said it is one of their favorites all time. You got to go back and listen to it. But I will give you the summary here. The bottom line, let's summarize the entire interview. You must have an attorney. You know, one of the things I'll tell you right now, so I'm going to start with this, and then we'll go into kind of the rounds and the summaries of the rounds. When you first start a business and you are an early entrepreneur, this is always the case. And I relate, I understand. So I don't have any money. Oh my God, money is tight, cash is tight. So the first thing that we never focus on are things like attorneys or things like contracts or things like our accountants and our professional service providers. I was there. I've made that mistake. And I got to tell you, it's a big mistake because as Michael Carrigan says repeatedly in the episode, that you could either pay him a little now or you could pay him a lot later. It's true. It's happened with me. I've had many issues. And it's not as expensive as you think. It truly isn't. And the amount of issues that you need to address aren't that deep, but you need an attorney. Now, I also go over in this episode that there's two kinds of attorneys. You got an attorney, okay? You got your Google attorney, right? You find them. You got your ambulance chaser. I didn't say that when he was here, but I've been wanting to say it ever since. Ambulance chaser attorneys. I know some of those. Your $150 an hour work in the corner, beat up office attorneys. They're cheap, yeah, but you get what you pay for, right? Or you've got your Michael Carrigans, and this is why I say the attorney that's in your corner. You know, one of the things I love about knowing that I have Michael as my attorney is I don't care if it's Sunday at 11 p.m., he messages me back. He's always got my back. There's so many things he does for me that he doesn't even charge for. His network, his access, everyone he knows. And he works for one of like a really big firm, right? Holland & Hart. And all the people that Holland & Hart knows, now all of a sudden I know. Attorneys are not just to get you out of legal trouble. They have brilliant networks. They know things, they know people, and when they really love you and love what you're doing, they support you. So you got to have great attorneys. So the very first thing that we talked about, so by the way, Michael, right, a little history on him. First of all, he's ClickBank's attorney. That's how I found him, through my buddy Fred Lamb, who found them through ClickBank. He's Fred Lamb's attorney. This guy's he used to be a prosecutor. He's fought over 100 cases, never lost a single civil case. The guy's he's a shark, man. He's awesome. He's been ranked a super lawyer every year since 2009 in the Best Lawyers in America. It's a publication. Amazing. He had a long list of credentials. And the biggest thing is I've worked with him for almost 6 years now. And I'm telling you, I've never had a better attorney. So now that I'm done hyping him up, number one, we talked about what's really important, legal structure of your business. We talked about the difference between S Corp, C Corp, LLC, and then very briefly talked about LLP. The biggest takeaways, do not, no matter what you can do, especially early on, don't have checks being written to your personal name. That's a sole proprietorship. Everything you own, your house, your cars, your kids, everything's at risk, okay? So even if you're just doing a small affiliate business and just getting little affiliate checks, take some time, get yourself incorporated. Most likely you're going to want to either be an LLC or S Corp. They're very similar, not many differences. You don't want to be a C Corp. C Corp gets intense, but there's a lot of advantages to it, but not when you're just early starting. Which one's right for you? You do need to engage an attorney. We also talked about how you shouldn't just use those $200-300 services online necessarily. There's lots of questions that need to be asked and answered that get set up in the legal structure, okay? So probably going to do S Corp or LLC. They're very similar. All right, now we moved on to round number 2. This is huge for our industry. We talked about partners, What's your deal? Like, what's your deal with your partner? So many people in this industry love to just partner up. Like, hey, yeah, let's just you and me. Let's start a business. Let's do stuff. That's great during the honeymoon period. 3 months later, 4 months later, when one person thinks the other is not pulling their weight, things become a problem. See, this also gets done during the corporation setup. So if you're going to do a partnership, set up an LLC with somebody, you define, your lawyer is going to know, a good lawyer, I should say, will know the right questions to ask. For example, what are your responsibilities? What happens in case of a dispute? Who's going to handle what? Who owns that what? How are you going to allocate your revenue, your income? How are you going to account for it on taxes? There's so many questions that your attorney will give you. You have to answer, and you can put them in an agreement. Have an agreement with your partner. Work with an attorney to know which questions need to be answered. Okay? Now, number 3, intellectual property. This was awesome because we talked about how a lot of businesses, when you first start your business, maybe you need a logo. So what do? You don't have a business account or business. So you buy your logo with your personal credit card. Like you go pay someone with your personal account. Guess what? Down the line, let's just look 5, 6, 7 years down the line, your company blows up. It's doing awesome. And someone wants to buy it. Well, they're going to do something called due diligence. And in their due diligence process, they're going to discover that the biggest asset of the company, being the logo, the name, is now owned by you, not the company. Or, God forbid, your business partner. First of all, they could hold the whole thing at hostage, right? The second problem is you will have to transfer said asset to the business, creating a taxable issue. So right from the get-go, you need to understand and define intellectual property such as copyrights, registrations, trademarks, patents, and you need to make sure they're done correctly. So at Lurn, we have tons of things we need to copyright that we do now. You should be copywriting your content. All right, you should be copywriting your code. It's very easy to do. You can throw a little statement on it, or you can go and register it at the USPTO. You should go online, look up USPTO, or work with your attorney. Trademark, big time. We trademark the Lurn logo. It's helped us so much. It saved us a lot of issues from people abusing it. All right, so intellectual property, very important. Number 4, investing in great asset tracking, bookkeeping, and record management. So everything possible should be recorded. If you have a deal with someone, it should have a contract. It should be recorded. Who owns what? It's between you and your partners, and of course between the company and you. You shouldn't own anything. It should be owned by your company. Make sure that's recorded. Good bookkeeping. We're hardcore about that here. I talked about how Lurn is actually getting a private audit done of our financials this year just because we want to show that good maturity of financial management to make sure we're doing everything right so that eventually one day, if we need to raise money or sell the company, which I don't think I'll ever do, hey, we will have shown good financial management. All right. Round number 5, we talked about good terms and conditions. Okay. Those little annoying things at the bottom of the website, terms and conditions, privacy policy, contact us, about us. What do most people do? I did this too when I first started. You go to someone else's page and you copy paste their terms and conditions and their privacy policy. Michael talked about how that is absolutely the wrong thing to do. And he talked about some really funny stories of where people have done that. You know what? I have found it. I can copy and paste a certain segment of my privacy policy on Lurn.com and hit it into Google, and all these people that have copied it, they don't even change the company name or the company address or the company email ad. It's ridiculous. But he talks about very specific reasons why it could create major trouble for you in the future. Not only is it illegal and you're plagiarizing my privacy policy and my terms, which is copyright protected by me, and I paid thousands of dollars to do it right. Now I had to pay a lot because I have a bigger company. You won't have to pay as much. Get an attorney to do yours. For example, maybe you copied from someone who sells products that are $10 and they have a term in their conditions that says you can only recoup 5x of the cost of the product. But what if your company sells products like consulting services for $5,000? Do you really want to be liable for $25,000? It could hurt you big time. Change it. Make sure you have a lawyer review these things and write something for you. Privacy policies and terms and conditions at the bottom of a website are very important. Don't copy and paste someone else's. All right, round number 6, we talked about working with vendors. We talked about the importance of understanding what contracts you're signing. Specifically, we talked about NDAs. Read your NDAs, okay? Michael gave a really good tip. He said NDAs can get you in a lot of trouble. So there should always be a clause in the NDA that says that anything that should be considered under the NDA should be strictly marked confidential. He said, put the onus on the other person to make sure they're marking things so that you are not having to be in the subjective world of figuring out what is actually confidential, what isn't, and how it can be used. So he said most people, and I was guilty as charged. Like, I do this all the time. I just sign NDAs and move on. I won't do it anymore. I made a commitment to him on the podcast episode live that I won't do that anymore. All right, round number 7. not the fun one, but such an important one. We talked about FTC. And you know what? I kind of want you to hear his summary right now about the things that he said that the FTC looks for, how to be compliant.
So the Federal Trade Commission is the main federal agency that protects consumers. And they spend a lot of time going after businesses that get in trouble, a lot with the Better Business Bureau. And they will go after those businesses, and it harkens back to a lot of the stories we've been talking about. They will almost always ignore a corporate formality, but if the more you've been following it, the better. Those formalities, the more you can protect your assets. But a good reason for you to pass on that opportunity that you shut down is a common thing for them to do is not only seize all of your personal assets, but require you to agree you will never work in internet marketing again. Things that won't surprise you. Overpromising the amount of earnings that people are likely to get, giving very unusual claims and holding them out as representative. Fake testimonials is a really big thing that it's amazing.
So a lot of people are out there just making up testimonials.
Yeah, the people that simply don't exist. And some people have been as blatant as putting out celebrity testimonials that simply aren't true. It's amazing what people get away with because the FTC, even the federal government, has limited resources. I always start with the general rule. Would you want someone to sell your mother this product that way? So offering something free that's not really free, jacking up the price, up sales, getting people in the door with a product that isn't worth anything for the sole purpose of getting them to do an upsell. You can tell their story if you're super clear about how unusual it is. And the FTC is also going to want you to, alongside it, give an example of what the usual outcome is. Okay. And I know that's often hard with the educational products because there's a lot of people who sign up for it and they never apply themselves. Yeah. And so it's difficult because you really ought to be judged by the people who really apply and use the tools you instruct. Well, the BBB, there's different views of it. A lot of people think they're really
that was quite the sigh, by
good.
The way.
They're really good consumer advocates. There are other people who feel like if you're not with the BBB, it's not gonna help you when you have an inevitable dispute with the consumer. So I think it is a good idea. And every time I've had a client investigated by either a state attorney general or the FTC, it always started with BBB complaints. You got to monitor it, you got to respond, and every business has
terrible... How do you monitor the BBB? Like, how do I monitor... I know that I have a team doing it, so I don't know how to do it personally.
Well, if you're a member, then you should be getting notice if someone's filed a complaint.
Okay.
And the key thing is you really got to respond. I have some clients that... I had one client recently who demanded a bunch of refunds and said he was an 85-year-old guy, but the products he was selling suggested he was an adventurous young man. So he was threatening to go to the BBB, and I wrote a letter back on behalf of the client. I said, just send me a copy of your passport, prove your age, and then we'll talk about your refund. Yeah. Never heard from him again. I had a client who was in the lead generation space. He was subject to investigation. Cost him about $30,000 to produce everything, to have that dialogue, and they closed it. He didn't do anything wrong, but it was an expensive lesson.
It is, yes, absolutely. Okay, so basically, the one thing I found that was really interesting was he said 100% of his clients who have had an issue with the FTC, 100%, not 99, not 98, 100% were triggered by the BBB. Meaning there were complaints at the BBB that triggered the investigation. So what should you do as a company if you're in an industry that's monitored by the FTC? Watch the BBB. Watch the complaints. Work on them. Resolve them. Make sure you don't let them go. Register yourself at the BBB. So it was great to hear from him on the kind of things that we should not be doing. I'll tell you right now, we're very strict here at Lurn. Very overly strict at Lurn about like just compliance, not FTC. I mean, yes, I actually really respect the FTC because I know that they're there to protect the consumers. So, but we want to be ethical and moral. So know the rules, all right? And definitely have a good attorney. And Michael said, you don't need to look up FTC attorney. You need to look up an attorney who's very, very well versed in advertising laws. That will be a person who's good for you in the FTC, all right? All right, round number 8, we talked about insurance. Buy it, use it. You can get insurance in a business for pretty much everything. We have insurance at Lurn. We have insurance for a lot of things. We talked about things like keyman insurance. We talked about things like fraud insurance, employee theft insurance, and how they've helped his clients and saved his clients from a lot of heartache and money. So we talked about insurance. You should have it. I definitely agree. A lot of people in the world think insurance is a waste of money. I can tell you from personal experience, it is not. I mean, if you know, Things like car insurance, you're legally required to have. But in your business, there should be. Now, maybe when you're a little bit more mature in business, right? So if you're just starting out, I don't know if you need insurance. But if you got revenue going and you got people in your business, you should start considering protecting yourself. Round number 9, we talked about the power of a great accountant. I specifically talked about how just using a local Joe Schmo accountant cost me $3+ million. Can you just think about that? And that was years ago. So how much would that $3 million plus be worth to me having been invested for the last 7-8 years? All because I didn't have the right accountant on. So what do you need? You need an accountant that understands internet businesses. All right. And someone who can understand businesses at your size. There's a lot of amazing things you can do with your money that is not escaping taxes. Okay. So calm down before you get all angry about that. It's not escaping. It's actually investing into the economy. It is actually doing things that the government wants you to do because it inspires jobs, it inspires growth, but they give you a tax write-off for it to encourage you to do it. These are amazing things, and I love our accountants. And I would actually recommend you to read a great book, amazing book about this. It's by Tom Wheelwright, who is my CPA. Shout out to you, Tom. Love you. Go to Amazon, type his name in. It's Tom Wheelwright. I can't remember the name of the book right off the top of my head, but if you type in Tom Wheelwright, WHEELWRIGHT, you'll get his book. Read it. All right. Last but not least, we talked about the power of a great lawyer. I told a story, which I'll tell again. Recently, I called Michael and said, I want to go into the financial services business. I want to launch a new company, but I have some questions, very specific. I don't know how to find these answers. He didn't know the answers. So he replied to me and said, let me find someone who does. He looked around his entire firm. Couldn't find anyone. They have a big firm. Couldn't find anyone that knows the answers. Then he said, let me reach out to the CFTC, the literal federal organization that oversees financial services, and find out if they know. His contact there didn't know. He cashed in a favor with his contact to ask around the CFTC to find out who would know my answers. And he, you know what? A few days later, he delivered to me. Didn't charge me a penny for any of that. That is an attorney that is in your corner. That is not an attorney that just writes contracts. That is an attorney that truly cares about your business and genuinely loves working with you. I am sure I am not Michael's highest paying client. By far, I'm not. But we've built that relationship and he goes to bat for me. That's an attorney. It's like literally having protection. It's like having a posse. It's like having an entourage, someone who will watch over you, protect you. And, you know, I talked about how before we did the podcast with him, I went to lunch with him and we talked about his kids. We talked about personal problems, health problems, family. We didn't talk about work. We didn't talk about business. And none of it felt wrong at all. It felt right. It felt genuine. And that is why I love him as my attorney. So this was a great episode. We also have his contact information, how you can read his profile. He's not the cheapest by any means, and thank God he isn't because he's damn good at what he does. If you want to look at getting a great legal representation, go to anikpodcast.com. Look at the show notes. His bio page at hollandhart.com is there. Look at it. If you love what you read, you'll learn how to reach out to him right there from the website. All right. So there you go, fighters. Come on. Start listening to the episodes. Don't lean on the TLDL ones. If you're watching this on YouTube, come on, leave me a comment there. Click subscribe. Click the bell. By the way, every night between the hours of 10 and 10:30 when I'm laying in bed, I am on YouTube reading comments and personally replying to them. So if you want to talk to me, that's where you do it. Do it at YouTube. If you're watching this on or listening to this on iTunes or any of the other amazing podcast platforms, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you leave us a review. Thank you so much. AnikPodcast.com, and make sure you go to Lurn.com, Lurn, and get your free membership and start taking all the amazing courses inside the platform. This has been an honor and a pleasure wrapping up this week. Great legal advice. Make sure you get yourself a great attorney. This is Anik Singal reminding you when life pushes you, stand straight, smile, and push it the heck back. Don't stop. See you on the next one.
Thanks for listening to The Fighting Entrepreneur with your host, Anik Singal.